Hey, you ever have one of those days where everything just seems to go wrong? Where the pressure is mounting from all sides, and you're just holding the line? Maybe it's a big project at work, or a personal challenge that just won't let up. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and I know that feeling. But today, I want to take you to a place and a moment in history where that feeling wasn't metaphorical. It was a matter of life, death, and the fate of continents. Where a tiny band of defenders, outnumbered, outgunned, and starving, stared down the most powerful military force on Earth and simply refused to break. This is Flashpoints, the wars that shaped us, and this is the story of the Siege of Malta, the island that would not die. Picture the Mediterranean in the year 1565. It's the heart of a colossal clash of civilizations. To the east, the Ottoman Empire, under Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, is at its zenith. It's a superpower of immense wealth, military innovation, and seemingly unstoppable momentum. To the west, Christian Europe is fractured, squabbling, and terrified. And right in the throat of the Mediterranean, between them, lies a small, rocky archipelago, Malta. It's held by a curious group of warrior monks called the Knights Hospitaller. These guys are the last of the crusading orders, essentially homeless after being kicked out of Rhodes decades earlier. They're not a country, they're a relic, and Malta is their last stand. For Suleiman, Malta is an irritant, a dagger pointed at his shipping lanes. He calls it the bone in the throat of the Ottoman Empire. He decides to remove it. He sends an armada of nearly 200 ships carrying perhaps 40,000 of his finest soldiers, including the legendary Janissaries. The Knights, under their Grand Master, Jean Parasat de la Valette, have about 500 brothers and maybe 8,000 local Maltese militia and mercenaries. The math is horrifying. The Ottomans expected a swift victory, a few weeks to crush this annoying outpost. What they got instead was a nightmare. The siege began in May. The Ottomans, commanded by Mustafa Pasha, didn't waste time. They landed and immediately targeted the key fort guarding the main harbor, Fort St. Elmo. This is where the story becomes almost incomprehensible. The fort was small, undermanned, and isolated. Logic said it would fall in days. But the knights inside, maybe 100 of them, decided their purpose wasn't to survive. It was to buy time, to make the Ottomans pay for every inch of rock with blood. And that's exactly what they did. For 31 days, under relentless cannon fire and wave after wave of assaults, they held. They patched the walls with timber and cloth at night. They fought until their swords broke. When a knight fell, a Maltese soldier would often pick up his armor and stand in his place. Fort St. Elmo became a meat grinder. It finally fell, but it had cost the Ottomans over 6,000 of their best troops, and, more importantly, a whole precious month of the campaigning season. The Ottoman commanders were reportedly horrified. If this tiny fort cost so much, what would the main strongholds be like? Mustafa Pasha, in a rage, had the bodies of the fallen knights crucified on wooden crosses and floated across the harbor to the main fortress. La Valette's response was pure, brutal psychological warfare. He had his Ottoman prisoners executed, fired their heads from cannons back into the Ottoman lines, and sent a message: this is the price. This is what you can expect. And that set the tone for the rest of the summer. The siege shifted to the twin peninsulas of Singlia and Burgu, the knights' main bases. What followed was a saga of sheer human endurance. The Maltese people, civilians, fought alongside the knights. Women and children carried water and ammunition, tended the wounded, and even fought with whatever they had. The heat was blistering. Food ran desperately low. Water was contaminated. Disease swept through the crowded, bombarded defenses. And still they held. They repelled massive seaborne assaults using hidden underwater harborside defenses. They launched daring night raids to destroy Ottoman siege works. Every attack was met with a ferocity that stunned the invaders. I think about this a lot, from my perspective here in New York, a city of immigrants and fighters. The Knights were a band of brothers from all over Europe, French, Spanish, Italian. The Maltese were defending their home. They had no common language, no single nationality. What held them together? It wasn't just faith, though that was part of it. It was a shared understanding of what was at stake. They had drawn a line. Malta was the line. If it fell, Sicily would be next, then Italy, then the heart of Europe. They were the thin, ragged, desperate line between the world they knew and a profound transformation. There's a clarity that comes with that, a terrifying focus. You're not fighting for a vague ideal anymore. You're fighting because the man next to you is fighting, and the wall behind you is all that's left. By September, after 4 months of hell, both sides were at the absolute brink. The nights were perhaps days from collapse. The Ottomans, decimated by disease and combat, were demoralized and arguing amongst themselves. Then, a rumor spread through the Ottoman camp. A relief force from Sicily had landed. In a panic, the Ottomans began to break off their assaults and prepare to retreat. The rumor was false. It was a small advance guard. But the damage was done. And then, finally, the real relief force did arrive. When the Ottomans saw fresh troops streaming onto the island, they were shattered. They scrambled for their ships in a disorganized retreat, leaving behind their equipment and their wounded. The siege was over. Malta had not died. The aftermath was staggering. The Ottomans had lost perhaps a third of their army. Their aura of invincibility in the Mediterranean was broken. For Europe, it was a thunderclap of hope. The bone in the throat had choked the giant. The Knights Hospitaller, who were basically a dying order, became legendary heroes overnight. But the real architects of the victory were the Maltese people. Their incredible resilience, their willingness to fight for their home alongside these foreign knights, is the core of this story. La Valette, the unbreakable Grand Master, went on to found the magnificent city that bears his name, Valletta, a fortress city built from the bedrock of that victory. So why does this flashpoint, this tiny island struggle, shape us? It's a masterclass in the power of overweight. The Ottomans had all the material advantages. They had the numbers, the guns, the momentum. But the defenders had something intangible, a resolve hardened by the understanding that there was no retreat, no backup plan. They were the plan. In our own lives, we face our own sieges, not with cannonballs and swords, but with pressures, deadlines, crises that seem designed to overwhelm us. The lesson of Malta isn't that we'll always have the resources. It's that the calculus of a challenge isn't just about the size of the army at your gates. It's about the depth of the fortifications you build in your own spirit. It's about the people you stand with. It's about holding the line, not because you're sure you'll win, but because some lines are worth holding, one exhausting, painful day at a time, until the tide finally, miraculously, turns. Thanks for listening to this episode of Flashpoints. If this story of resilience resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share the show with someone who needs a bit of historical perspective on their own challenges. For more deep dives into the pivotal moments that forged our world, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This is Ibnul J. Farabi for Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious.